Now, quickly, Jeff,
Yeah.
let's talk about that Flyers game.
Yeah, quickly so, we can just
We can get it over
get
with.
out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like a band-aid, just rip it off. Rip it off quickly. Um, but it just seemed that was
Oof.
a lot of the series so far seems to be the Flyers just overthinking things. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's not. And I will credit. I'm not saying that the Hurricanes keep doing that. The Canadians have looked bad. They're a very stingy team, and the
They
Flyers have
are.
just
They,
the Flyers haven't
yeah.
been playing the same Flyers self as they have been all season long, or that they were, and even the first 3-4 games in their playing.
Mm.
Because even the first game in this series, even though the Flyers came away with a win, they didn't look dominant. They
No,
looked
they,
good in
they
the
look
first, but
good
they
in the first 10 minutes of the first period, maybe 15,
yeah, then they
which is
looked
actually uncharacteristic of them because
they're usually yeah
today looks a lot more like the Flyers were used to in the first
because
period, that is.
the Canadians' best period is the first period. The Flyers' worst period is the first period. So
Yeah.
the in this game especially, the Hurricanes took I did it again. The Canadians took advantage of the Flyers' poor starts of games, and and it seemed like maybe more so after the second goal, but they just kind of after the
Yeah.
quick
They
early
just stopped
goal,
playing.
they just kind of
They stopped
there was
playing.
just something out of them. It just knocked the
Yeah.
wind out of them. They just
Um,
couldn't get it back.
I will say this about the
They didn't.
Canadians. They are a lot better of a team than most people give them credit for. That's why I have this series going to 6. I did think about going to 5. I thought Montreal, they're a lot better than most people realize. That's
Mhm.
why I had the
Right.
Canadians
It wasn't
taking
just
out
a
the
fluke
Penguins
that they
in
beat Pittsburgh.
5 games, but it only took them 4.
Hmm.
Thank you very much. And I really think that the Canadians are going to give the Flyers a little bit more trouble than a lot of people
They will.
realize, even more so than I initially realized. I kind of underestimated the Habs a tiniest bit, but again,
I
it's
think everyone kind of has. So
oh, I know a lot of people have. I know again as typical Flyers fans, whenever we're the team's a higher seed, oh, Flyers absolutely, because why? We're the number one seed, we're a higher seed and everything. But again, we this is one of the best teams we've seen in Philadelphia in years when it comes to the Philadelphia Flyers. They look so sharp all year long. Um, they play great in the round robin, and all in all, though, for
it's
this Flyers
it's
team, they can't
the little
overlook the
things.
Canadians. It's the little
It's
things,
the little things, and they just
including
it's they're so
turnovers.
yeah.
That is the biggest Flyers killer in both game one, game two. Yes, they won game one, but because of just how they played their usual game, they snuck away with the victory in
Mhm.
game one. In game
Thanks to
two,
thanks to
they got
the Fairby play.
destroyed
Yeah.
because of turnovers. And I
Hmm.
swear, I kept seeing turnover after turnover after turnover. The
And they're
Flyers,
and
they
they're
had, and this shocks me looking at the stats now. The Canadians had more giveaways than the Flyers. The Canadians had 18. The Flyers had 9.
yes, the
It
game
doesn't seem like it, but
yes, the
yeah,
game moved along. The Canadians weren't as dominant as they were in the first period. The Flyers just made mistake
yeah,
after mistake. They couldn't get out of their zone. They were they just kept getting Carolina. Montreal had the better forechecking, and they just kept beating the Flyers.
yeah.
The bottom six didn't look particularly great. Really, nobody really looked that great. And the one thing I was going to come back to, because I was
Mm.
talking about when you're talking goalies, the one thing I think that was smart was pulling, even though it didn't really matter at that point, but pulling
Yeah.
hard at 4 goals, just in case if it were to get uglier. So you don't make
And
them,
it, in a way, it
you don't
did because
just
the
keep
fifth
them.
goal was scored.
Yeah, fifth goal was scored, but you were never sure if like the one game I'm going back to was one of the blowouts the Flyers had the Capitals, and after like the seventh goal or something like that, they finally pulled Braden
Holtby.
Holtby.
Yeah.
It's at that
And
point what
again, yeah,
yeah, it's also that point of not getting Hart's confidence or anything knocked on
yeah,
him for keeping him in it for so long when the
right.
team in front of him isn't producing. Because the whole reason why the Flyers won the first game was because of Carter Hart. He's playing
It
game
really was.
three.
He stole the show.
Brian Elliott's not playing game three. It's Carter Hart.
Yeah. And again, I don't care that, Hart letting 4 goals. I don't care that he got fooled. Again,
None of
he's
those goals
starting
were
game
his
3,
fault.
rightfully so. Not only that, exactly, none of his goals were his fault. The defense didn't play their game. They looked flat. They looked awful.
It seems to me that the veterans on the team struggle against the speed of the Canadians. Braun struggled today.
Braun looked the slowest I have ever seen him. I'm not
Niskanen
going to
at
lie.
times looks shaky.
I almost prefer at this point Robert Haig
Yeah,
in for Justin Braun for game 3.
I was gonna make your comment on your tweet you made during the game, saying to
Yeah.
put Freeman. I was like, Jeff. I was gonna say, Jeff. What about Haig? He's the
I honestly, in that moment, I completely forgot about Robert Haig. Sorry, Haig. My bad, buddy.
My only fear is that because there's obviously gonna be some type of lineup
There has
change.
to be.
The one big thing I think is that Michael Raffle, even though he didn't play, he was in morning skates, so maybe that means Sunday he plays.
That's what I'm hoping for. Because again, if that's the case, someone's coming out of the lineup.
Hopefully, Konechny is fine because
That's what I'm hoping for.
He
It's
took a
going to
shot
be.
to the foot.
Yeah, it was. I still haven't seen honestly anything again, and we might not even.
You're not going to hear much.
You probably won't. Excuse me, about Travis Konechny, just because again, people have to be so. He tried to jump out of the way a bit, and he got hit. I'm trying to see. It looks like Ben Chariot was the one who took that slapper. Chariot.
Yeah.
Thank you. It looked like he was the one who took that slap shot, and yeah. He had to get helped off the ice a bit. It looked like
even when he went down
right back.
when he went down the tunnel, he had to have Carter Hart and someone else help him down the tunnel. So maybe
which again isn't good.
Obviously, once he gets the skate off, it's going to hurt even more. Or you're going to see more of the swelling. But hopefully, it's one of those things that maybe he can walk it off, and maybe at like Raffle or even Hedman, maybe it's just a sprain. That's the
or just again, it's a stinger. It's just something you just have to be cautious with. And again, you're like,
it's also playoffs, so I doubt he's going to want to come out. He's going to take some shot or whatever to his foot, so he can come back in there and be Konechny. But even Konechny at times looked shaky. You saw a lot of the older Konechny where you saw a lot of his emotions. He took a dumb penalty at one point, cross-checking Jonathan Drouin.
And that was that is just a stupid decision. I get he's frustrated. There's that shot of him on the bench slamming his stick down foot, took him like 3-4 times. Because again, he's so frustrated. I get it, and
it's a frustrating game. So obviously, everyone.
It was a very frustrating game, and so you made several great points you pointed out to me earlier. So
but first, I wanted to. Before I get to some potential positives to take out of this, I want to destroy the Flyers some more. But this
I know.
Oh, we're gonna get to it. Okay. The good first. I got you.
Yeah.
Good cop first.
So I'm gonna the first one you mentioned, number one, I'm saving that for last because that is the last one I want to talk about. The first one, I'm actually going to go to the third point you brought up. Oscar Lindblom is almost done with his quarantine time, and that'll be huge morale-wise.
He came last Friday, I believe, and he's been quarantining since. The last I heard, as early as this weekend, it's this weekend now, that he could join the Flyers.
Yeah.
And I don't even think he needs to play for that to be a huge morale boost, because everyone mentions how much of a positive impact he is, his smile, his everything. Him being in practices, I think, will be huge, even if he doesn't play. I think the closest time period he can play potentially is September. It's the 14th of August, so it's still a couple weeks away. If the Flyers are still in the playoffs by then, that's another thing too. But I think that's huge, because not only that, because right now I don't think he's really gotten much contact with the Flyers. He might be with. I don't even think he's with Robert Haig. He's probably just by himself. Maybe getting contact with people so he can get whatever he needs. But he's pretty much by himself quarantining. So once that is done, then he can be in the press box during these games. So he's watching these games. He'll be at every practice.
In the stands.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be in the stands watching these games. He'll be in practices right next to every guy. And he'll be skating. If he keeps going strong and his stick game, handling doesn't look any worse for wear or anything, that will be a huge just morale boost, especially after a huge loss. Say if I don't know if they practice tomorrow, if tomorrow's a day off for them.
That's a good
But
question.
if he comes back tomorrow, that's automatically, if I'm one of those Flyers, that loss is already gone on me because
Oh my gosh, yeah. Because
Oscar
again,
Lindblom
you're so focused on Oscar.
after months of not seeing him much, but hearing all the positive things from his cancer treatment being finished and everything, that then is a huge boost for everyone.
Absolutely. Honestly, I don't even think I could have said it any better myself, Mike. You nailed it right on the head. And
number two, I think it's the most obvious one, but it still needs to be said.
yes.
The past Flyers coaches that brought the Flyers to the playoffs outside of the poor team that they brought, not the best team, but they had the Weises and them still on the team, the anchors, as we like to call them, the rocks, whatever your term is for that. You had
human trash
obviously
cans.
you had Craig Berube before he was the Blues head coach, and Dave Haxtell, who I don't think was great at being resilient in times of being destroyed. And
No.
AV, I think, similar to Peter Laviolette, when obviously the infamous timeout that was called in 2010, we knew how much of a legend he is. He won a cup, so there's that. There's a reason why Alain Vigneault brought two different teams. I know he hasn't won one, but he's brought two different teams, and fairly recently, not far off from one another, to the Cup Finals. There's a reason why.
It was a 4 years time difference. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been here before. He knows what it takes. So I think he's got the ability to, one, spark people, and not only he's going to talk to Giroux and the captains to not only take responsibility on themselves, but also responsibilities for teaching the younger guys as well.
No, absolutely.
For
It's a
Couturier
huge
and Giroux's sake, saying, because I saw it when Konecny was breaking his stick shortly after, Couturier and Giroux was like, whoa, like calm down, like kind of thing to him. Like
no, absolutely. No, you're exactly right there, Mike. And I really think that for the Flyers, they need to forget this loss. It's a horrible, horrible loss.
AV
but again,
isn't afraid to make changes or anything.
Not, and that's the biggest thing. And not
even after
that,
bad losses, he might not even change the lineup at all from the game that he did today.
And the other thing I was going to say about AV here, Mike, is even when he makes a change, it's for the better. No, Craig Berube, when he was here in Philly, again, it was a very different style. I can't remember what kind of changes he would make after a game, especially after a bad loss like this. But Dave Haxtell, he would make the absolute worst change.
I know what it was. Remember Steve Mason went down?
Yeah.
That was with Berube, and he had to go with Ray Emery for the start of the Ranger series because
that's right, because Mason got a
down.
concussion against the Penguins because the Penguins ran him over.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that I remember. Again, he didn't have much of a choice.
No, but that's another thing too. Is there's problems dealing with their goaltending, starting one too much over the other, and just adversaries there.
Right.
I'd say more so Haxtell had them than Berube, but I'm just saying those playoff teams.
That I agree with.
They didn't get past the first round, and even although the last time in 2018, the Flyers' first game against the Penguins, they got destroyed. It was like 7-2, maybe 8-2, something like that.
It was 7-2. It was ugly.
They took them to 6 games, but they still lost.
Yeah.
Obviously, injuries didn't help at all in that, but they just weren't able to come back. Obviously, also Lindblom was scratched and everything. It was just a whole shit show.
And that was the biggest issue I had with Haxtell. He delivered. He had no emotion. He always had that straight face the entire time, just that glare.
And his way of just, this is a teaching moment. I'm benching him.
Exactly.
Again, teaching him. I'm just benching him. Not first see if he goes down a little lineup first, and that maybe try that for like a game. Not multiple, not during the playoffs. Also, if, say, Lindblom does come back in the Flyers. Sorry, I went back to Lindblom for a second because I never think about Lindblom. But say if Lindblom comes back and he's the Lindblom right before his cancer treatment where he was pretty much on the verge of a career year, that would be huge for the Flyers.
Yeah.
I mean, it make the question of, do you then separate the second line, or do you put the third line now? You put Farabee there. You put Farabee with Oscar and Grant or something like that.
Mm-hmm. But
Or
yeah,
you put,
it's
or you have him on the first line. That'd be interesting.
That would be. I don't know. I may want to put him on third just to give him some time to ease.
Being hopeful here.
I know. No, I agree, and it's going to be hopeful. I think it's good to get if he's able to go. I want him out there just for precaution.
Oh yeah.
On
also,
the third line.
This is just an annoyance I have just from watching some of these games, because whenever I've watched the Penguins, they had a little bit too because of Jake Gensel being hurt. But more so whenever I've watched the Blue Jackets, they always talk about, obviously they had a bunch of injuries to overcome and everything in Tortorella, but I feel like there's not a lot said about how much the AV and the Flyers had to overcome this offseason, this season, because from the start of the season and for majority of the season, really, they didn't have two of their better young players play for majority of the season. For Nolan Patrick, it was the whole season. For
Oscar Lindblom,
it was like the first quarter of the season.
I don't even think he played 20 games. I don't think he did. Yeah. I think it was like 16.
Yeah, it was like near the middle or beginning of December was like the last game he played.
So this point I'm going to bring up by Jordan Hall from NBC Sports Philadelphia. He brings up a good point, and it's more of a note from AV, but this kind of goes hand in hand with number one. So number one, this is something similar to what I said earlier in February after a very bad loss to the New Jersey Devils, a 5-0 shutout as well.
Same exact way.
This is the kind of gut punch of, all right, let's get going again. This is also a minor gut punch. Alain Vigneault said post-game he was not happy with Kirk Muller, who, again, was for today, or I guess for the rest of the series and playoffs, he is the interim head coach in place of course, Claude Julien. And Kirk Muller had his first power play unit out there for a 5-0 game. Vigneault is going to remind the Flyers that happened. So again, it's kind of in a way goes hand in hand because, it's a bad loss. It's a gut punch, but again, it's it's 5-0. Why are you putting your top power play unit out there? Yeah, if you don't want to be down like that, you should have played better. I get that, but that's just a sign of disrespect right there. That really is to me. You're up by nothing. You're clearly dominating. You're going to win. The game's almost over. Why are you putting your top power play unit out there?
Yeah.
That's going to be
a good reminder. And also just this too, have them have some heat on themselves.
Yeah.
What can he do
think they
if
will.
There's some trouble not trouble, but say if their backs are against a wall, can he pull a Claude Julien and get this team together and come back from that? So far,
I think
a lot of the Flyers are obviously a lot of it's mental mistakes and stuff like that. But quickly, let's just, because I just realized we got off it a little bit, but back to your point before, because it's obviously going from a different sport, but something you brought up about the Eagles when they went to their that won the Super Bowl. I'm not saying the Flyers would go on to win the Stanley Cup here, but it was a similar kind of thing, like a gut punch. The Flyers hadn't lost any games in the playoffs. They needed one. I think they needed one gut punch loss to it.
Here's the other thing, real quick here, Mike.
Yeah,
the Flyers, they haven't lost back-to-back games since January 8th.
Yeah.
Since January 8th. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So again, it's not like guys, we can't lose this game, otherwise it's going to mess up with our record. No. It's going to be this team understanding, look, we've been here before, even after a bad loss. We're going to be fine. We've handled this before. We can handle it again now.
If there was anyone on that team that was still on cloud 9 about being the number 1 seed and going undefeated into that game, that is now diminished a bit. And I think I'm not saying there was a lot of it, but maybe some of the younger players may have felt it. a bit.
I think
And I
so.
think that
Again,
this kind of gut punch kind of gets them going again. Because you're going to use the Michael Scott method of keep it simple, stupid. It hurts my feelings every time, but you got to do it. You're asking too many
yeah,
questions.
no, you really are. And again, keep it. I even like yelled at it or like put it in like an angry tweet in all caps. Keep it simple.
I was about to
Um,
respond to it saying stupid. Keep it simple, stupid.
I wish you did now. But no, and it's true. You know, the Flyers, they kept going for these fancy passes, the perfect pass, the perfect shot. There's no such thing. You know why the
If you
Canadians
hesitate
dominated?
1 second, you're going to
They
have two guys on
kept
you.
it simple. The Montreal Canadiens kept it simple with their system. They kept
It
it
was,
simple with their gameplay today against the Flyers. That's
I think
why they dominated them 5
this is
nothing.
what I
That's
think they
why
saw.
they could continue to run away with the series potentially. The Flyers aren't
It's,
careful enough,
yeah.
and
It's,
they are overlooking the
mhm,
Canadians by
yeah,
overplaying their own system,
maybe. But here's
or
this too.
overthinking, I should say.
Maybe the coaching and everything, because I'm assuming the Canadians watched that last, because they were either playing the Flyers or Lightning in that game. They were probably watching that
Yeah,
last round robin game. And if you remember at the end of that game, how sloppy kind of the Flyers looked and how
they got
quick
very sloppy.
they got sloppy, but also forechecking wise, the Lightning were just beating them everywhere. And I think the Canadians took that and they're now installing it into the series so far. And so far, it
Absolutely.
seems to
And
be
again,
working.
it really is working. So again, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, this is why I had the Flyers winning in 6. I could even seeing them go to a 7th game if they're not careful enough, because the Canadians, they're outplaying the Philadelphia Flyers. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a good look for the Flyers right now. Yes, it's 1-1 series. The Flyers can redeem themselves hopefully Sunday night, which I'm hoping that's the case. I think that they will, but they got to be careful. They can't overthink their system. They just got to keep it simple. They have to make smart choices. Stop turning the puck over so much. Don't take dumb penalties. Again, one of the biggest things that annoyed me is after they got the puck, they basically just flipped it into the Canadian zone and turned it right back over.
Yep.
It's like they just they're like, oh,
There's
I get the
one
puck, I got
play
a
in
chance. Let me flip it
particular.
up.
There was
Yeah,
one play in particular. I was like, "What are you doing?" Do you remember the one play
I said that
after
out loud at least 10 times today.
after I think one of the power plays after one of their power plays ended.
Yeah,
Ghost was cutting towards the net, and Abe Kubel had it. Instead of feeding it to Ghost, he just clears it. He just kind of goes behind the net.
that's a perfect example of
I was like,
what
"What are
I'm
you doing?"
talking about.
He was cutting. You
It's
could have easily done like a saucer pass to him, and he could have been
again,
there.
it's and Knack has that talent and skill set of being able to make that pass. Again, that's the kind of play I'm mentioning here, Mike. Is that the Flyers in this game clearly I don't know what they were doing. I literally yelled at that at my TV while watching the game earlier at least 5-10 times because
Also,
what were they doing? They kept turning the puck over. They kept making relevant looking plays just like that. It's
also,
frustrating.
this is where I'm going to lose some Philadelphia fans if you listen to the podcast. If you're a bandwagon fan and you're angry about how
Bye.
if you're angry about how that game turned out and you weren't the biggest fan of how that first game went, see ya. See ya.
Yep.
If you're cool, see ya. If you're not the only team,
you don't understand hockey if
no,
you just because a team's a #1 seed doesn't mean they have a cakewalk of a
yeah.
playoff series against any team. I don't care who
Don't
the
just care
in
about
any
the
sport.
don't just care about the team because they're in the playoffs.
Exactly, and that's exactly what's
I
happening.
know the one because the slogan or whatever is brotherly love or whatever. But the only team I ever really see any Philadelphia fans, not all of them, but a good amount of them giving it to is mostly the Eagles because they're the only team. I know the season's a lot shorter, but they're the one team that even if they go win like 4 games, the link's going to get sold out every game.
Yeah.
But the Flyers or the Phillies or even the Sixers, even the Sixers are a little better now, if they're struggling, there's barely anyone that stands. Even last year and some of this year too, when the Flyers were actually good, the Flyers weren't selling out.
Yeah. Again, here's what cracks me up. It's the Sixers and the Flyers. The games are indoors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even on a crappy night, the Philadelphia Eagles fans will travel to the game when it's pouring out, when it's snowing out, and sit outside in the pouring rain, sitting, enjoying a game, even when they win.
Mm-hmm.
But again, perfect example. It was pouring out one night, and it was the night Oscar came back to Philadelphia, and there was a huge roaring standing ovation.
And there was like no one there. Right?
Exactly. That what blows my mind is people will sit outside in a pouring, wet, cold, freezing, windy, chilly football game
In January.
outdoors in
Late
January.
December. Yeah.
December, January, even November when it starts to get colder out. But when it comes to sitting in an arena or a building or anything like that, inside where there's a roof over their heads, that's a roof.
Yeah.
You get wet. Oh, look at that. It's raining outside. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I get the obvious. Oh, this football season's significantly shorter than any of the others, but I mean, the only ones you ever really see that's ever sold out is home opener, opening day, and then playoffs, or maybe if they're playing like
division rival.
Division rival. If the Sixers are playing like LeBron or someone like that, if the Flyers are playing the Penguins, if the Phillies are playing the Braves or something like that, or even
Eagles
then,
playing Dallas.
Yeah, but even they're selling out if they're playing the Lions.
Exactly.
Or the Dolphins.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's a minor annoyance I have with Philly fans.
I hear you, but again,
those fans are the same fans that are going to be bandwagons here that will still complain, saying this Flyers team is the same as the past few Flyers teams, even though they hadn't probably seen majority of the season or know that this team is significantly better than the past Flyers team. End of rant.